Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the FPCJ press briefing. Today, the Abe Cabinet approved Japan's new Development Cooperation Charter. This new charter replaces the existing Official Development Assistance Charter, ODA Charter, and has been formulated in terms of developing the ODA to address the challenges facing the international community. It is a great pleasure to invite, on the very day of the Cabinet decision, Mr. Ken Okaniwa, Deputy Director General of the International Cooperation Bureau and Deputy Press Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to talk about the new charter. This session will be conducted in English only. Before we listen to what Mr. Okaniwa has to say, please don't forget to turn your cell phones to silent mode. Thank you. Then Mr. Okaniwa, please.
Yes, good afternoon. これ入ってますね。入ってますよね。はい。Good afternoon. My name is Okaniwa. Today, the Cabinet made a decision to approve the Development Cooperation Charter. So I will, I guess, first explain in about 20 minutes broadly about the charter, and then it will be followed by I can answer questions. As you can see on this PowerPoint slide, this is a revision of the current official development charter, which was decided last time in 2003. So it's about 11 or 12 years since the previous. And in the process of formulating this charter is, has been formulated as a result of consultations with the NGOs in Japan, mostly people in Japan, NGOs, parliamentarians, the business community, and others. And before we drafted this charter, we had a meeting by the sort of the sort of a wise men group, which consisted of Japanese academics, people from the NGO society, CSO, and also business. So it has been quite intensive consultation process. And of course, this document is, I think, something that presents the basic policy of Japan in its development cooperation. So it's geared to present its policies towards other countries, but it's also something that we need to be accountable within Japan. So I must say that because of this process, it reflects the various opinions within Japan about how do we cooperate with other countries. But we also tried at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to, I guess, to reflect the various international discussions, including with regard to MDGs. Okay, having said that, first of all, the title has been changed from ODA Charter to Development Cooperation Charter. And this has several reasons. One is that the ODA, one is that we observe that there are many various issues that has come up to deal with in the international society, which we have not dealt with using ODA. One easy example, I guess, is protection of cyberspace. It's a very new issue. We have not addressed it in the past. Or outer space. And then there are, and also we realized that even though countries which have a high per capita income and they may have graduated from the sort of the official development assistance, that they also need help. And so in addition, because 70% of funds which go from developed countries to developing countries from the private sector, that I think what we do using government funding needs to collaborate closely with the money from other sectors like private sector. And so we have changed the title to Development Cooperation Charter to cover the sort of the broad areas that we need to cover under this document. Now, I think I will then go on to the second page, which sort of lists the draft outline of the new charter. And I think the first point about the philosophy, well, it states clearly that Japan will contribute more proactively to the peace, stability, and prosperity of the international community. This is a reflection of the Abe Cabinet's policy of proactive contribution to peace. And we want to use official development assistance as a sort of a catalyst for mobilizing a wide range of resources, including private funds. And number 2 in the second page, basic policies. ABC, the 3 pillars of philosophy of Japan's official development assistance. One is contributing to peace and prosperity through cooperation for non-military purposes. This, I think, first point is very important because Japan has, as a peace-loving nation, and we have a constitution which severely limits any military activities abroad. Official development assistance is a very important tool for contributing to international community. And we will continue to uphold the principle of avoiding any use of development cooperation for military purposes, and also to avoid aggravating international conflicts. The second basic policy, promoting human security, this is an agenda or point that we have been promoting in the United Nations and through our bilateral official development assistance. The concept, you can read the document for details, but the basic concept is to focus on individuals and to protect them and to empower them to deal with various threats and to promote their livelihoods. The third basic policy is it's rather long, but the basic point is we want to promote self-help efforts and also to make use of our experience and expertise to support development in developing countries. Regarding this third basic policy, I think our assistance has enabled the graduation or the sort of development of countries like China and South Korea. We always try to support developing countries' efforts to become self-reliant. And we are quite pleased that there are now countries which have now become self-reliant and to provide assistance themselves as well. And the second part about making use of Japan's experience and expertise, I think our experience of our own economic growth or development has a lot to offer to other countries, and also the experience is not necessarily resides with the government, but also with local governments and private sector. So the charter in the sort of the last part of this charter emphasizes collaboration of the government and JICA with local governments and private sectors. And I guess I'll just mention that later as well. please turn to the third page of the PowerPoint presentation. We have three priority issues for official development assistance. Promoting quality growth and promoting poverty eradication through such growth. Promoting growth has always been an important pillar of our aid activities, but in this new charter, we emphasize quality growth, which has the elements of inclusiveness, in the sense that we do not want to leave anyone out, sustainability and resilience. This concept, I understand, is already so in the process of being incorporated in the discussions on post-2015 agenda. And we want to promote such quality growth to address poverty reduction. In order to do so, I think we will focus on human capacity development of infrastructure, and the details are written in the sort of the actual document. What we do is written in the actual document, page 5. And there's a long list of what sectors that we will support, such as infrastructure, finance, trade, investment climate, vocational training, human resources development, industry, employment creation, agriculture, fishery, and forestry. But I will not go into the details of that. And because we need to seek quality growth, we will also address basic human needs such as healthcare, water and sanitation, food and nutrition, and quality education, and so on. Now, the second pillar of the second point about the second priority issue is the sharing universal values and realizing a peaceful and secure society. We emphasize this this second point because this is the sort of the precondition or the condition for achieving economic growth. So we attach importance to issues such as rule of law, good governance, and democratization, and basic human rights, including women's rights. We also want to emphasize and support peace building, emergency humanitarian relief, and address issues such as maritime safety, terrorism, and also securing rule of law, and also the use of the seas, outer space, and cyberspace. The third issue is building sustainable and resilient international community through efforts to address global changes. Japan has always contributed to achieving the MDGs, and so contributing to the post-2015 development agenda will also continue to be our priority. In this connection, we announced in 2010 the initiative for promoting health, global health, by committing $5 billion in the 5 years from 2011. We also committed to spend $3.5 billion in the 5 years from 2011 in promoting School for All. There is also a mention about priority policy issues by region. I'm not going to deal with each region in this presentation, but we attach particular emphasis on promoting regional integration, promoting connectivity among regions or within regions as a sort of a new relatively new issues that we want to emphasize. And I think it's relevant particularly for ASEAN and also West Asia. There is also a mention about promoting cooperation for countries with special vulnerabilities despite having attained a certain level of per capita income. And this is mentioned in page 7 of the actual document. What we are aiming at in this particular passage is that because countries such as small island countries or Gulf states, they have attained a per capita income perhaps sometimes above the threshold for being eligible for ODA. But countries still have vulnerabilities such as island country for vis-a-vis climate change, or Gulf countries maybe in terms of sustainability issues, water or waste management issues. So we are not going to just rule out any assistance for such countries, but we will look case by case and then provide assistance, even though they cannot be counted as official development assistance under the DAC within the OECD. Now, if you can turn to the page 4 of the PowerPoint. This page looks at the sort of the implementation aspect, and it's important for us to have a good basis for implementing these policies. The first point, the upper half, looks at principles for effective and efficient development cooperation. First, we want to take a more strategic approach. We want to, I guess, formulate strategic and effective policies based on our foreign policy. And we also want to promote synergies between ODA and non-ODA finance and cooperation. And as I mentioned before, we also want to take advantage of various strengths that Japan has. And so we are going to be interacting more with our private sector, including small and medium enterprises, which have very specific technology which are of benefit for developing countries. We also want to look not only at physical infrastructure, but also non-physical aspects. As regards the principles for securing appropriateness of development cooperation, in the previous charter we only had 4 principles, which is A, B, C, and D of this this document, but now we have 10 principles for implementation. They are all important, but I guess the most attention that some of the people have maybe is the avoidance of use of development cooperation for military purposes or for aggravation of international conflicts. What we have incorporated in this document for the first time, that we have stated that in case armed forces or members of armed forces in recipient countries are involved in development cooperation for non-military purposes, we will consider whether we will provide assistance on a case-by-case basis. This is because in developing countries, in some cases, the armed forces have important roles in non-military spheres, such as humanitarian assistance or other activities. There have been examples in the past, such as the maternal ward of the military hospital in Senegal, which treated not only people from the military but also civilians for their, I guess, mothers and children. And we have supported that maternal ward in the past. But we will continue to look at such cases on a case-by-case basis. Of course, among the various principles in this particular section, we attach importance to promoting women's participation, which is one of the main priorities of the Abe cabinet, as well as other issues such as preventing fraud and corruption, security, and also ensuring security and safety of our development staff. I think I have to wrap up my first presentation now, and then I can answer questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Okaniwa. Now we would like to open the floor to questions. We will receive questions from the foreign press first, but one question at a time, please. If you have a question, please raise your hand, and if you are selected, please wait for a microphone and give us your name and affiliation before you ask your question. Any questions? Neidhardt-san.
Süddeutsche Zeitung, Germany, Neidhardt. What do you mean by shared universal values? When the Prime Minister was in Vietnam, he spoke of the shared values of democracy and freedom. I thought Vietnam was a communist country. When he was in Egypt, which is a military dictatorship, he promised aid, and right now they are receiving the military dictator of Thailand. So can you define what the democracy is in the Japanese government's view? Thanks.
Yes, thank you. I think when we, well, first of all, what this document says is that we will promote universal values. And when we provide assistance, we will take into account, I think, the situation of human rights and other I think, elements, such as what is the state of our bilateral relations. In fact, if you look at this document, the actual document, that is, in page 9, it talks about a more strategic approach, and we will assess diverse factors such as the state of affairs in the international community, including developing countries, and the policies and programs of developing countries, the strategic importance of the recipient country, and programs of developing countries. And also the the importance of development challenges being addressed in relation to Japan. So those are the elements which we will consider when we decide whether or not to provide particular assistance or not. Thank you.
Lori-san.
Anthony Rowley, Singapore Business Times. I'm wondering how this is going to affect Japan's relations with international institutions. I mean, in recent decades, Japan has been a major contributor to the multilateral development banks, for instance, and it's provided an awful lot of financing, which was discretionary in the sense that the multilaterals could use it largely according to their development wisdom. But what this document appears to imply is that Japan will be taking back into its own hands a lot of the development decisions and decisions as to where money goes and the purposes for which it's used. Is that a correct interpretation or not?
I think we value the collaboration with international organizations, and the point about one of the one of the basic policies, the priority policies includes the building a sustainable and resilient international community through efforts to address global challenges. And it says in this particular chapter that global challenges cannot be dealt by a single country and require united efforts at the regional level or by the international community as a whole. And I think in order to deal with such challenges, I think cooperating under the framework of international organizations is very important. We underscore this point in the sort of the implementation section by having a independent section in page 13 on called partnerships with international, regional, and sub-regional organizations. So I think this is a reflection of the, I guess, the priority or the emphasis we place on our collaboration with international organizations.
Yes, please.
Tim Kelly from Reuters. It just, during your presentation, it struck me that by making it broader, you give yourself more flexibility in who you give aid to. Particularly, I was looking at this idea of providing aid to developed countries, and not kind of having a cut-off, if you like. Does that, it kind of struck me that it brings you kind of closer to the idea that China has with its Silk Road initiative, that the money it's dispersing through that fund, it kind of, this brings ODA kind of closer to that model than you had before, that kind of greater flexibility it provides. Is that kind of a way that we could kind of look at this?
Well, if you look at the actual document and the relevant passage is in page 7. It's sort of it's in the fourth paragraph of page 7, and as I briefly mentioned, basically countries which are more developed than, which are at a higher level than the per capita GNI of $12,000 doesn't mean that they have no problems or they have no need for any assistance from, well, Japan. Because, and that is the reason why we have decided not to sort of cut off such countries artificially, just because the OECD DAC has a threshold of $12,000 as a sort of definition of official development assistance in the sort of the sense of the OECD. And that is the reason why we have decided to include this particular message or the policy, that we will not cut off countries which are perhaps a bit over this threshold, but they may need particular assistance. For example, I mentioned the example of waste management or dealing with the effects of climate change, that we will continue to use our expertise to support such countries. Although we will probably not be using grant assistance, but maybe more in the sense of technical assistance.
Yes.
Isabel Reynolds from Bloomberg. I have two quick questions. One is, you mentioned in your sort of preamble that one of the changing challenges that we're facing is the need to protect cyberspace and outer space. And I was wondering in what form sort of aid could be used for that purpose. And also on the military question, in your priority issues, the letter B, you refer to maritime safety and anti-terrorism. Does that mean that military does not cover, for example, Coast Guard? So you could provide, under ODA, you could provide Coast Guard ships or planes?
Yes, thank you for that question. Well, with regard to space, I think we cooperate with, well, not physically sending up satellites, but making use of data from satellites in order to promote land management or dealing with or observing the state of the, I guess, the Earth vis-a-vis various weather events. In cyberspace, I think we cooperate with the ASEAN countries and other Asian countries in order to promote their capacity development in the area of cyber. We have we have up to now cooperated with quite a few countries with regard to maritime safety. And these activities have been done with respect to the Coast Guard staff of the recipient countries, so not the military part of the government.
Any other question? Yes, Lori-san.
Just going back to my previous question, is the multilateral aid budget from Japan actually reduced? In other words, Japan has a bilateral aid budget and has a multilateral aid budget. The amount which goes to multilateral institutions, which they're free to spend more or less according to at their discretion, is that actually reduced under this plan?
Reduced. Well, I guess it's a question that I cannot answer now because I don't have the, I guess, the statistics. But let me answer that question by saying that this charter is a sort of well, what is written in this charter reflects many of the things that we have done over the last 12 years in order to improve our official development assistance. So many of the elements, such as collaborating more with the private sector, with the local government, we've already started doing that, for example, or providing assistance to island countries for dealing with climate change. We already do that. But I think what we want to do in this charter is that we want to write these new elements into this charter, which is only revised every 10 years or so. So by having this charter, I don't expect that the sort of the budget allocation for the official development assistance budget will suddenly radically change. But in any case, I don't think there is any sort of gradually decreasing tendency in Japanese official development assistance budget to decreasing the proportion of international organizations. I think that budget usually fluctuates based on the yen foreign exchange rate of the yen.
Yes, please.
Isabel Reynolds from Bloomberg again. I just wanted to follow up again on the military issue. It says here that you would take into account things like public welfare or disaster relief work done by the military. Does that mean it would be something that would be done in a case of emergency where funds are suddenly needed, or is it something that could be done on a regular basis where the military is involved in rescue work?
By the way, could you tell me who you are? Bloomberg, okay. I think I think the I guess the specific area that we will provide such non-military sort of assistance through armed forces will have to be decided on a case-by-case basis. So it's a bit difficult to answer your question in sort of a general sense. I think it would really be based on whether it is it can be ensured to be for non-military purposes, and it provides, I guess, input for development.
Yes.
Just Tim Kelly from Reuters. Just to follow up on Isabel's question, if, for example, you provide, say, a vehicle to the military and it's provided, say, for disaster relief or from some other humanitarian purpose, how do you then monitor that vehicle's use in the future? For example, I mean, if it's an ambulance, it could be changed into something that carries ammunition or other kind of military equipment. So what's in place to make sure that, you know, equipment that has a potential dual use is not misused?
Well, I think that problem is always there. In fact, that problem is always there not only for recipients who are part of the military, but also for recipients who are not military. And in all cases, we have and we will look at all cases. First of all, before deciding on any commitment, very carefully whether there is any danger of any assistance being misused. There will be a commitment that we will ask for prior to any assistance, and that we will be monitoring what happens after the delivery of any assistance.
Could I just ask you how you monitor? What's the process?
I think it's through the, I mean, as I said, all official development assistance have that problem, in the sense that it could be diverted. And so we have various commitments that we ask from governments. We will consult with governments on how they will be ensured, and then we will monitor what is the status of that results of that assistance. Once that is
and if somebody breaks that commitment, if you find somebody has used equipment, say for military purposes, what's the, you know, what's the punishment? What does the Japanese government do? Does it cut off aid completely to that government, or is there anything less kind of punitive?
There's no sort of like a manual for sort of doing this or that when something goes wrong, because there are many ways of dealing with various cases. So I guess it would have to be considered on a case-by-case basis. But it's a very hypothetical. What do you do when things go wrong? But we need always to think about what do we do. Hopefully it doesn't happen.
Since we are running out of time, we would like to receive the final question. If there's no more question from the foreign press members, you have a question? Okay.
Foreign aid in other countries is highly politicized. I mean, in the United States, for instance, Congress frequently withholds funding for various political reasons. This charter seems to imply that that's going to be more the case in Japan too in future, that politics will enter very much more into the decisions as to where money goes. Is that a correct interpretation?
I think official development assistance has always been. I mean, it has the budget for these activities must be passed at the Diet, and so of course the Parliament and the parliamentarians have attention paid attention to this, all the activities of the development cooperation. So it does not change, I think, in that sense.
Okay, I'm sorry, but it's time to close today's briefing session. Thank you very much, Mr. Okaniwa.
Thank you.